Hi there, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and the project I'm sharing today is my entry into the Lawnscaping Challenge number 137, Texture-Fied. So I'm going to be using some distress inks on an embossed piece of paper, along with Spectrum Noirs on the very cute Loveable Legends stamp set, and some other elements to add some extra texture to my card. So my initial idea was to create kind of a abstract ombre sea using this embossing folder that created this kind of scales, although here I'm thinking of them as waves, and then taking distress inks direct to paper and creating an ombre effect. So on the top one, which is the darker part of the sea, for that one I use Salty Ocean, Blueprint Sketch, and Chipped Sapphire, and for the lighter one that I'm working on right now I'm using Tumbled Glass, Broken China, and Mermaid Lagoon. And then I go over the Mermaid Lagoon a little with the Salty Ocean to kind of tone down the green. And although it kind of looks like a mess, I was purposely trying to get some of it into the deboss sections as well as the embossed sections to create kind of an extra textury, I don't know, sketchiness to the whole feel. And that paper was had a canvas texture to it, and so that the ink was really bringing that out as well. And here I'm creating a very, very abstract modeled sky. Now I'm using watered down distress inks in Tumbled Glass and Broken China. This is on some 140-pound cold pressed watercolor paper, and I'm using my flat brush, and I'm really just dabbing it on there. I knew I was going to have a sky above my abstract sea, so that was what that was for, and I wanted to get that modeled texture on there as well. And here's the star of the show. This is the stamp set. As I mentioned before, it's the Lawn Fawn Loveable Legends stamp set, and it's absolutely one of my favorite stamp sets ever. I think it's because I have sort of a strange, soft place in my heart for Bigfoot and Nessie, and although I wouldn't say that I believe in them necessarily, I think the idea of them is really cool. So when I saw that they were in this stamp set, I had to have it. And this is the first time, this is only the second time I'm using this set, and this is the first time I'm using the Kraken. So hey, here's the Kraken. And I'm coloring him in with my Spectrum Noirs. And I started with the lightest color, which is CR10. And then I'm going to go to the second lightest or first darkest color, which is CR11. And I'm just shading like the tentacles that are behind, the bottoms of his tentacles, the sides of his head, and the bottoms of his head flaps, I guess. I'm not sure what those things on the top of his head are called, but I'm calling them head flaps. And then I went with DR1, which is the third shade, even darker, and now I'm blending it all together with the CR10 to get sort of a seamless blend between the light and the dark, which is the great thing about Spectrum Noirs or any alcohol markers. But at this point I decide I don't have enough dark, the shadows aren't dark enough. So I grab my DR5, which is even darker than the DR1, and I add in some additional shadowing here and there to just kind of give them some extra depth and dimension. And then I wind up blending all the darker sections together with the CR11. And I did get outside the lines a little bit, so I'm using my blender pen, and I'm just touching that next to the areas where I have colored outside the lines, and the blender pen pushes the color away from itself, so I wound up pushing it back into the image. So that comes in handy. And my bubbles are now BT1 and IG1, and then my tiny, tiny little ship, I used TN7 and then TN8 to add some shadows to the mast and the ship. He's so little. It seems, it's so cute and tiny. It almost seems like a waste to work on it, but you can tell when you see it up close that it actually has some shadowing on it, and it's pretty cute. Now I've got the matching dies for this, so how I normally position these is as you see, and I use paper tape, which is a real low-tack tape, to hold them in place when I run them through my Gemini when I cut them out, because otherwise they kind of tend to float around a little bit on me. So I do wind up cutting those out, and I fussy cut out the bubbles because there isn't a matching die for the bubbles, and I do 2 sets of bubbles, the second set of which I cut apart and arrange separately. And here's the greeting, "What's Kraken?" Also from the stamp set. obviously goes with the Kraken theme. And I stamped that in jet black archival ink. And now I decided that the greeting needed something to separate it out from the back, so I used some of that airmail themed washi tape. Now I'm gluing my little boat under the waves there. I did cut like sort of the waves out of the very top of that lighter ombre inked panel, and now I am gluing down some clouds that I cut out using the Lawn Fawn Simple Puffy Cloud Frames die set. And the great thing about this die set is that it cuts the frames. Obviously there's 3 sizes, so that large piece is the frame, is the largest frame, and then it also cuts out middles, which are clouds. So those 2 clouds that I used are the middles from the other 2 sizes that come in that the die set. So it's like 2 for 1. You get cloud frames and cloud middles, so pretty cool. And I almost always use both pieces when I use that die set. So if you need some clouds, that's a great one. My greeting, I decided to turn into a little banner. Seemed kind of like maybe a little bit nautical feeling. And then I decided I needed some extra washi tape to back my banner, because I was really liking the stripe and the color. The colors work really well with the Kraken and then the background. And then I just liked I don't think it's more of a pattern than a texture that those stripes are adding, but it is adding an extra element to the challenge. So I liked it because of that. And it also brings the colors together very nicely, obviously. So I'm going to tape all that down, and I am taping everything that you're seeing here onto that watercolor panel that I did the sky on. Now my ATG gun doesn't like the watercolor paper, so that's why I used more glue than anything else. And this is slightly smaller than an A2 card. That panel is like 4 by 5 1/4. And now I am pulling out what turns out to be one of my favorite elements on this card, which are the Pretty Pink Posh clear droplets. This is the 4mm size, so it's the smaller size. I do have the 6mm size down there on the left, but I don't mind abusing those. And these just were so cool. They really look like bubbles. I glued them. They have a flat back, so I just glued them down with some Ranger Multimedia Matte, and they look amazing. And I wasn't really sure when I bought them, like how I would use them, but I will definitely use them again as bubbles. And I could also see them being used as raindrops and even like dew on flowers, and who knows, the possibilities are endless. So that was a happy discovery on my part. Now I'm adding foam tape to the back of the Kraken and popping him off the card, because he is, after all, basically the star of the card. So, he needs some extra importance. I'm sparkling up my bubbles with my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. And then I added his eyes back in with the black glaze pen, because they were getting lost in all the red coloring. Now, as I mentioned, my ATG gun did not like the watercolor paper, so I used Be Creative tape to tape this down to that metallic red mirror card. I liked the shiny effect. Again, I don't think smooth shininess is necessarily a texture, but it did add, it was a nice additional element that I thought went well with the theme, the texture theme for the challenge, and obviously worked well with the colors that I was using in the card. And now I'm just going to tape the whole thing down to a top folding A2 card front. And I do have to trim it off a little bit, because I can never line it up just perfectly. If anybody has any tips, I would love to hear them. And there's the finished card. There's a good shot of the textury background as well as those clear droplets. You can see how they really look like bubbles. It's like pretty cool. And that's the finished card. The clouds were hard to see during the video, but now you can get a good look at them right there, and you can sort of see the modelly sky going on in the background. And then here's the Spectrum Noired up Kraken in all of his cuteness. I just think that stamp set is the cutest, most whimsical set. So you gotta have it. I think everybody needs to have it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate it. And you can find more from me from my website, www.blacksheep303.com. As always, I would love to hear from you. If you want to shoot me a comment, question, thought, idea, anything, all is welcome. You can leave it for me in the comments below, or shoot me an email through my contact form over on my website. Have a great day.